Kion had spent years ruling the Tree of Life alongside Rani, guiding the sanctuary, and ensuring peace among the animals who sought refuge there. Unlike the Pride Lands, which followed a structured monarchy, the Tree of Life functioned more as a protected haven. Leadership here was based on wisdom and balance, not power or legacy. For a long time, Kion believed he had found his true purpose, separate from the destiny once expected of him. However, an unshakable feeling had begun to grow within him. Despite the life he had built, memories of the Pride Lands lingered in his thoughts. His birthplace, his family, and the kingdom he once protected. He had chosen to leave them behind, but had they truly left him? Strange occurrences deepened his uncertainty. Kion began having vivid dreams, not just of his past, but of events he couldn't explain. He saw Pride Rock under an ominous sky, heard distant voices whispering his name, and felt a looming sense of unease. But what disturbed him most was the sudden reappearance of his grandfather, Mufasa. Mufasa's spirit had guided Simba through his darkest times, appearing when he needed wisdom most. But why now? Why, after all these years, would Mufasa speak to Kion again? His message was brief but heavy with meaning. The past and future are not as separate as they seem. This cryptic warning raised troubling questions. Was something happening in the Pride Lands that required his presence? Was his family in danger? Or was this vision trying to tell him something about his own journey? Seeking clarity, Kion confided in Rani. While she reassured him that he had built a meaningful life at the Tree of Life, she also reminded him that only he could determine where he truly belonged. Unable to ignore his instincts, Kion made a decision. He would return to the Pride Lands, not to reclaim a throne, but to uncover the truth behind the visions and the growing sense that his story there was not yet over. As Kion approached the Pride Lands, the sense of unease from his visions remained. He had left these lands as a cub, believing his journey had taken him elsewhere. But as the familiar horizon came into view, he realized that time had not stopped in his absence. His home had changed, and so had the kingdom. The first thing he noticed was the undeniable stability of Kiara and Kovu's rule. The herds moved without fear, the balance between predators and prey was well maintained, and there were no visible signs of struggle. From an outsider's perspective, the Pride Lands were thriving. Yet, something felt different. The kingdom carried an atmosphere of quiet tension, one that he couldn't quite place. As he walked through the savannah, whispers followed him. Some members of the Pride greeted him warmly, recognizing him as the son of Simba. Others exchanged wary glances as if unsure of what his presence meant. Had his return disrupted something? Kion's role in the Lion Guard had once made him a respected figure, but he had willingly stepped away from his place in the royal bloodline. Now, seeing how the Pride Lands had moved forward without him, he began to wonder, was he still welcome? Or had he become an outsider to his own family's legacy? Arriving at Pride Rock, he looked up at the great formation where he was born. It stood just as strong as before, yet it was no longer his home. What he didn't yet realize was that his return was already shifting the balance of power, and the tensions running beneath the surface of the Pride Lands were about to rise. Kion's arrival at Pride Rock was met with mixed reactions. Some members of the Pride saw his return as a moment of celebration, welcoming back a prince they once believed was lost to the Tree of Life. Others, however, remained silent, watching with uncertainty. His presence alone was enough to stir an unspoken tension, one that neither Kiara nor Kovu could ignore. As queen, Kiara maintained her composure, offering Kion a warm but measured welcome. She had spent years solidifying her rule alongside Kovu, ensuring the Pride Lands remained strong under their leadership. While she was genuinely happy to see her brother, there was an undeniable weight to his return. Did the Pride see him as a lost prince reclaiming his place? Would his presence make some question her authority? Simba and Nala, now older, embraced Kion with affection, but there was quiet concern in their eyes. They had accepted his decision to leave, never expecting him to return under such circumstances. Seeing him now, they couldn't help but wonder, had he come back for answers, or was there something more to his return? But the most uneasy presence was Kovu. His entire reign had been built on trust. Simba had accepted him as king despite his connection to Scar. However, Kion's return cast a shadow over this hard-earned stability. Some lions, still loyal to the old ways, whispered among themselves. To them, Kion, as Simba's biological son, was the rightful ruler. Even if he had no intention of challenging Kovu, the very idea could be enough to create division. Without realizing it, Kion's return had already begun shifting the power dynamics of the kingdom. And this was only the beginning. As tensions within the pride grew, an even deeper mystery began to surface, one that had remained buried for years. While Simba's rule had restored peace to the Pride Lands, whispers of Scar's influence had never truly disappeared. Some believed that Scar's legacy had ended with his defeat, but others speculated that his bloodline had not been completely erased. Rafiki, the kingdom's trusted shaman, had spent years studying the past, searching for signs of lingering threats. He had seen many rulers come and go, and if history had taught him anything, it was that power never fades entirely. It simply waits. According to long-standing rumors, Scar may have left behind a hidden heir. Whether this heir was his direct offspring or a lion raised in his ideology remained unclear. What was certain, however, was that some still believed in Scar's vision. If such a lion existed, they could become a rallying point for those who had never fully accepted Simba's rule. For Kion, this revelation changed everything. Until now, he had viewed his return as a personal journey for understanding. But if Scar's heir was real, then the Pride Lands faced a potential threat far greater than mere political tension. The idea of an unknown challenger rising to claim the throne would not only destabilize Kiara and Kovu's rule, but it could also reignite old conflicts among the lions. Even more troubling was the possibility that Kion's presence in the Pride Lands had unknowingly accelerated this danger. If Scar's heir had been waiting for the right moment to act, the return of Simba's son could be the trigger they needed to make their move. This raised a chilling question. Had Kion's return set events in motion that could lead to the greatest threat the Pride Lands had faced since Scar himself? Whatever the answer, one thing was clear. Peace in the kingdom was more fragile than anyone had realized. The possibility of Scar's heir was no longer just a rumor. It was a growing concern that could shake the very foundation of the Pride Lands. If such a lion existed, they wouldn't just be a threat to Kiara and Kovu's reign. They could divide the kingdom itself. Scar had ruled through fear and manipulation, and those who still believed in his ideology might see an opportunity to reclaim power. This created an even greater dilemma for Kion. He had returned seeking clarity, but now he was at the center of a conflict he had not anticipated. His presence had already stirred uncertainty within the Pride, and with the growing fear of an unknown heir, the stakes were higher than ever. If a challenger were to rise, some lions would look to Kion as the natural leader to oppose them. His legacy as the leader of the Lion Guard, his training with the wisdom of the Tree of Life, and his connection to the royal bloodline made him a strong figure in the eyes of many. If the Pride Lands faced an external threat, would Kion be forced to take action, whether he wanted to or not? The Pride was already beginning to fracture. Some remained loyal to Kiara and Kovu, believing in the stability they had provided. Others, still haunted by the past, feared that a hidden heir of Scar could seize power and undo everything Simba had built. Now Kion faced an impossible choice. Should he involve himself in the kingdom's affairs, knowing that his interference could disrupt the leadership even further? Or should he step away, trusting that the Pride Lands would handle its own struggles? More importantly, if Scar's heir truly existed, how long would it be before they made their move? The peace that the Pride Lands had enjoyed for years was beginning to crack, and there was no telling what would happen next. With tensions rising and the Pride Lands on the verge of uncertainty, Kion was forced to confront the true purpose of his return. What had started as a personal search for answers had escalated into a political and ideological crisis. His presence had rekindled old debates about leadership, his role as Simba's son, and the possibility of Scar's heir lurking in the shadows. The Pride was divided. Some looked to Kion as a potential leader in the event of a rebellion, while others feared that his return had destabilized the kingdom. But Kion now understood something critical. His place was not in claiming power, but in protecting the balance that had already been established. Unlike the lions who ruled before him, Kion had seen leadership from a different perspective. His time at the Tree of Life had taught him that being a ruler was not about possessing a throne, but about ensuring harmony. If Scar's heir did exist, the real danger wasn't just in their potential claim. It was in the division they could create. A fractured kingdom would be far easier to manipulate and conquer than one that stood united. Rather than positioning himself as a rival, Kion chose another path. He used his influence to mediate, ensuring that fear would not dictate the Pride's actions. If Scar's heir ever emerged, the Pride lands would face them together, not as a kingdom divided, but as one strengthened by its unity. With this decision, Kion found his true purpose, not as a ruler of the Pride lands, but as a protector of its future. He had come back searching for where he belonged, and now he knew. His home was not in a single kingdom, but in his role as a guardian of peace wherever he was needed. With this realization, Kion prepared to leave, knowing that he was not abandoning his family, but fulfilling his true destiny. The Pride lands had changed, and so had he. And as he returned to the Tree of Life, he carried with him a renewed purpose, one that ensured the kingdom's future would remain strong, no matter what challenges lay ahead.